some news to bring you that may be moving the market this morning. We will see. President Trump just posting on Truth Social, quote, Japan coming in today to negotiate tariffs, the cost of military support, and trade fairness. I will attend the meeting along with Treasury and Commerce secretaries. Hopefully something can be worked out, which is good. Great, he says, exclamation point in parentheses, for Japan and the USA, exclamation point. So we're going to keep our eyes on that meeting and see where it goes.
And it is World Autism Month. Our next guest is focusing on revolutionizing the status quo for diagnosing, treating, and living with autism. Joining us now, Chris Mail, co-founder and managing partner at Autism Impact Fund. You have a unique approach. You actually do have VC or investment funds in early stage startups. You're going to launch another one.
Correct.
At this point. Yep. Highly diversified funds, I would imagine, because you would start with, I guess, early detection and diagnosis, early, I guess, intervention, try to minimize it. Yep. You'd look at therapeutics, you'd look at genetics and what causes it. Then you move on to the really hard part, and that is adults and teens and everything else living with autism for the next 50 or 60 years and the effect on society and families.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's unbelievably daunting.
It's a big problem. I think, again, thank you for having us on. Again, it's a privilege to be here and talk about AIF and all the work we're doing, so really appreciate that. And as you mentioned, we do look across the entire life cycle from earlier diagnosis to interventions. We view this as truly one of the largest public health issues of our time, given the scale, the increasing rates, the problems that come along with it. So we do look to invest in the entire journey of the family and across the entire spectrum. So we're really taking moonshot opportunities driven through the for-profit venture capital model.
It's also, I don't know if I'd call it controversial, but we have a new Secretary of Health, RFK Jr., in the past has talked about the role of vaccines, which I guess someone like you would say it's been totally debunked by good science, not crappy science. Would you say that at this point, thimerosal has been, even when it's not in?
Yeah, I think as we look at it and take a step back, unequivocally, it's a great thing that the U.S. government is talking about this, bringing attention to it, bringing capital. So we're hope that they're able to really bring the resources. This requires all hands on deck. We were the first fund of our size and nature to do this. We're not the only now, and it takes that moonshot level with the government involved. So we welcome that. And I think there's a lot of things that don't cause autism. We're focused on the things that do.
Well, I wish we knew, because, and I'm not sure, Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt, but in A2 in the Journal today, the latest statistics, one out of 31 children, which is up from 1 out of 150 children since the year 2000. However, in a place like, I think it mentioned someplace, Laredo, Texas, maybe, it's 1 out of 1,000, whereas in California, it's 1 out of
24.
Yeah, 1 out of 24. Yeah. So it's obvious it's either being diagnosed more frequently or there's access to diagnosis.
So it's certainly a portion of it is more awareness, better diagnostics, but there's also something happening in the environment and in the biology. And one of the breakthroughs that we're excited to announce is one of our portfolio companies called Mara Bio, stands for maternal autoantibody related autism.
Okay.
And it's a form of now a biomarker for nearly 20% of autism, mostly the most severe cases. So we now are having evidence that there's biological things occurring.
There's 100 different genes that have been...
Thousands of genes.
No, that have been identified as a marker for how many? For autism?
It's over 1,000. So there's really no help in the genetic side. That's where we're looking towards the biology. This Mara gene or this Mara biomarker is a massive breakthrough, and then we're looking and doing a lot of research around the environment, food, the air we breathe, and really discovering
a biomarker. And so we've had a couple of our kids have this, and it's interesting for us to piece. It seems to me it's pretty genetic. They're ones who kind of look the same, act the same. So echo behaviors from certain stuff we have cousins with, so forth, on one side, not on the other. The kids, I have 5. So there's been an interesting kind of test case of this. But what is, like you said, if it's hard to pinpoint the genes that are involved, what are the biomarkers and how could that maybe help people figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, it's a broad spectrum, I think, as you know, and most of your audience knows, and some are dramatically impacted and some are less impacted. So there's a variety of things occurring. The biomarkers are showing the environment has created these antibodies in the mother that get passed along to the child. That's one, and there are certainly genetic components, and there's, again, it's that wide range. So there's a lot of work to be done.
So with the biomarker, do you know the gene product and where is it mediating the problem? So it's an antibody. What does it affect? Something in the brain, or?
It passes through the mother into the blood-brain barrier of the child. Passes
through the blood-brain barrier.
Into the child.
But you don't know there what it's doing.
We're working on that.
Okay. Yep. So there's another fund you're going to launch.
Correct. We're launching our second fund now.
And it's going to, the focus will be different in what way?
It will be similar in many ways. The focus will be continuing to invest across the entire spectrum. So earlier diagnostics, living with it, Autocon, our company we talked about last time, and employment. So we'll be making larger investments into similar types of companies that are still continuing to be on the cutting edge.
Are any of those at risk if Medicaid is cut? That's where we see a lot of the panic. That's more for the older kids, I think.
Or DOGE.
Right. Obamacare still covers a lot of the younger.
Oh, yeah.
That cuts things back.
What we're seeing with, you mentioned the administration now and the attention being brought to it, with the actually opposite is what we're worried about. We do not see any of the risks from Medicaid. Given the size, the scale, the societal cost is going to be $15 trillion by the 2029. They are taking an approach that really helps us actually, and the tailwinds are behind us to not only do really well with the fund, but make a big impact in society.
What's the current state of thinking of a 25-year-old or an adult, a 30-year-old with autism? We need a job, we need a place where there's some assistance in terms of, I've seen things, I have some experience as well, but I've seen things where 10 things of being a parent of it, and they're all the same. You got to learn how to cut toenails. You got to learn you got to make 2 meals every night.
Yep.
It's totally consistent with all these kids. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, how do you address even life skills and how to get people to...
It's a really big area of focus, and again, it is such a broad, and it manifests in individuals differently. There are some that with our company Autocon, which we talked about prior, where they have high-tech jobs and are less impacted. But we celebrate that. On the other end, those that need more care and help, this is a very difficult task for families, and the crisis of why we're trying to help, because they need that help along the entire spectrum of life.
But and the difference between someone who's mildly affected and someone who's severely affected, it might as well...
Night and day.
It could almost need a different name for what you're dealing with, but it is all the same because you can see the same characteristics.
The spectrum is too broad, and we're working on subtyping it and breaking it down and having different categories just for that. These families, the comorbidities that mostly profoundly impacted are life-altering, and even those with the means still can't fit. Yeah. Exactly. So 90% of individuals with an autism diagnosis have at least one other co-occurring condition, gut health, epilepsy. Over 50% of them have 4 or more. So in the more complex cases, it's gut health, epilepsy, ADHD, depression, anxiety. So all of those types of things are the opportunity set that we're investing in.
I don't know what to take away from this, Chris, necessarily, except it's really important. But so in kind of a perverse way, RFK Jr. has galvanized what's happening with autism.
It's great. It's great. The conversation's happening.
That's not what you might think. You might think that it would be a setback, or DOGE is also not necessarily.
This is not a Democrat-Republican issue. This is a human societal issue that is rapidly increasing, and we're seeing a lot of progress with MARA, with the employment, all across the spectrum. The portfolio companies are helping.
As things you don't have to wait till. What month is it? Is it April? You don't have to wait till April every
we do this every day.
Yeah, well, and we want you to come back and update us, especially what you said. This just happened with the mother. Yeah.
There's a lot of very exciting things happening. So thank you for having us.
All right, well,
thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it.
Coming up, former President Biden making his first public remarks since leaving office, criticizing President Trump on Social Security. We'll tell you exactly what he said. But first, as we head to break, take a look at yesterday's winners and losers in the S&P 500.